Let's get corrupted. What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Joe with Meteoric Serpents coming back at you for another episode of the Colubrid Corruption Podcast. Guys, I hope you're all doing really well this week. We have a guest that I'm excited for tonight. I've met them a couple times, so it's going to be a fun one. But yeah, hope everyone's doing great. Good to see people in the live chat. And yeah, let's keep everything rolling. I've been really liking the streak we're on with the podcast. I know sometimes I'll miss a week here and there, but we've been on a good streak, so looking to keep that. But this is episode number 66 of the Colubrid Corruption Podcast with Mid-America Reptiles. So very excited. Always cool to see the number of the episodes go up and all that good stuff. And last week was pre-recorded. Last week we hit 1,100 subscribers, so thank you guys very much for getting us past that mark. Now we got to raise the bar and go to 1,200. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that like button on today's podcast, especially if you enjoy the channel. Share it out with your friends. Get your friends to subscribe. Get your burner accounts to subscribe, whatever it may be. And yeah, and speaking of that, you could also listen to this podcast on all the major audio podcasting platforms like Apple, Spotify, a couple others as well, like YouTube Music. So yeah, if you like it there, make sure you follow the podcast so it downloads the episodes for you. Give it a 5-star review. Write a little something. I know you can on Apple podcasts. You write a little review there. I know that helps the algorithm big time. Share it with your friends, like I said. So yeah, do all that good stuff. As you all know, you could find me on social media at Meteoric Serpents pretty much everywhere. Best place to find me. And the description down below has the links to all of that, as well as the Instagram of our guests. So always make sure you give them a follow if you're listening to this. Also, guys, USARC. USARC is the organization that fights for our rights to keep our reptiles. Whether they're fighting against laws on a local, state, national scale, USARC is out there fighting. So make sure you go support USARC Florida. Those are the two very important organizations. I am a member of both. So yeah. And the first link in the description below lets you check out the Meteoric Serpents Patreon. Make sure you go check that out. A lot of behind the scenes access, early access to pre-recorded, Colubrid Corruption episodes, all that good stuff. Yeah, and we have a cool Discord group chat with a lot of like-minded individuals who like colubrids. So if you're into colubrids too, you should consider joining because it's fun. And I'm looking to build a cool community of colubrid enthusiasts. So yeah. And let's see, before we get into our guest tonight, we have our hashtag Colubrid Corruption of the Week, which I think, yep, I had ready to go from the homie Mason. Sorry if it's a graphic image. I hope YouTube doesn't strike me for this. Nice little, I know it's a Seminole County yellow rat from Chris Montross. Just super cool. These are my favorite locality, I think, that Montross has. But the homie Mason, who's in the Patreon, by the way, he got a pair of them. So make sure you go give Mason a follow. Serratus.ectotherms on Instagram over there. And thank you, Mason, for sharing this, the hashtag Colubrid Corruption of the Week. Guys, if you want to be featured on future episodes, just put hashtag Colubrid Corruption on your colubrid photos. I choose one every single week. You get a little shout out and featured on the show. So yeah, thanks, Mason. All right. And we had a couple. Oh no, I'm too big. We have a couple homies in the chat tonight. We got Adam from Ivory Colubrid Co., one of the Patreon members. Thank you, Adam, for being here. Thanks for your support. It means a lot. And we got Keller. Keller, I enjoyed your THP episode. I just want to know why your internet was so good on that episode, but it wasn't as good on here. I'm going to need an answer to that. And you're gonna need a redo episode for sure. But yeah. All right. So guys, without further ado, let us welcome Cassidy. I know will be joining us soon, but let's welcome Travis from Mid America Reptiles. What's going on, Travis? How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for having us on, Joe.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I was, you know, uh rethinking about it because I know we met at Colubrid Fest. That was 100% fact, but I was like, we met another time before that, and I think the only show that was plausible was Daytona, which was true. You guys made the trip down there, which was cool to meet you guys back then, and then obviously we knew each other by the time Colubrid Fest rolled around. So yeah, glad to have you guys on. Always like having people I've met in person. It's
Yeah,
always fun.
heck yeah. Yeah, that was cool. It was kind of by chance. We'd never been to Daytona before, but that was an awesome
Yeah,
show, and we were really happy to get to meet you too. So
yeah. Hell yeah. Awesome, man. Well, the original, I mean, the premise of why I brought you on, I mean, besides the fact that you guys would have gotten your own episode anyway, but I feel like every other Instagram post, I was saying it beforehand, every other Instagram post for the last, I don't know, is it month or so has been clutch after clutch after clutch. I was like, oh boy, they're pumping out a ton of eggs right now. So um maybe it would have been better to wait until you had babies on the ground, but obviously you're doing something right with the breeding. I know you always have a good selection of animals at shows because I've seen your table before. But before we get into all of that, can you kind of give the background of where you guys started into reptiles and how that kind of got you to where you're at today?
yeah, for sure. My story is pretty similar to most people in the hobby. I grew up in the country, kind of, and always liked being outside, and I always liked dinosaurs and stuff as a kid. And then Steve Irwin and the Crocodile Hunter was real big when I was real young.
Yeah.
So he made me want to go out and start flipping tin, looking for snakes and going down by the pond that we had close to the house and looking for them. And I eventually, or well, my parents eventually let me start keeping them out of the yard. And I kept a couple of them fairly successfully. We had a pretty good stock of wild rodents, and then some like cricket frogs down by the pond. One of the first species I actually kept out there was eastern hognoses, and
Okay.
we happened to have like a mom, I guess, have a clutch pretty close to the house because there were several babies, and I caught 5 or 6 of them, put them in a 55-gallon aquarium with a bunch of dirt, and then fed them cricket frogs
Nice.
every other day. Kept them through the
Nice.
summer. They were pretty sweet. They were really cool, and that ever since then, I guess I kind of kept them in my childhood. I convinced my parents to let me get a ball python, and then I convinced Cassidy to like them, and we started the business we started breeding probably 4 years ago, so not super long ago.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And speaking of Eastern hogs, I was told a local guy over here who watches the show, shout out John, whenever you listen to this episode. I just met him actually because he works at an exotic shop that's right near me now, but I heard there's a spot for Eastern hogs right over by me. So I got to go check it out and go see if I can find me a hog nose and some other stuff because that would be super cool.
Yeah, that would be really cool. They're neat snakes for sure. We don't
Yeah.
have I don't find them a lot around where I'm at now, but we find them every once in a while, and I see them like on Facebook
Nice.
groups and stuff. So pretty neat.
Cool. Awesome, man.
Yeah.
All right, cool. And then where did this whole kind of collection come from? I know you've, built up quite the I call it a pretty high quality corn snake collection. Obviously with corns you could get in deep real fast with
Yeah.
how much that's out there. So what
Yeah.
was it I assume most of what we're going to be talking about tonight are corns, but what
Yeah.
made you choose corns, and how did you start building some of the projects you've been building with those animals?
Well, it all kind of started. We got into it about 4 or 5 years ago, and I initially picked up quite a few ball pythons at first, And Cassidy was actually the one that liked the corns because they were smaller and easier to handle, and she was
Yeah.
still fairly skittish around the snakes at that point. So I kind of wanted to get some bloods, and she wanted to get some corns. So we both went different ways there. And she really liked palmettos at the time, so we kind of dove straight into trying to make palmettos right out of the gate.
Nice.
But as it kind of went on, and we had babies from balls, bloods, and then the corns, and actually some MBKs too there in the first couple of years. I just really fell in love with the colubrids, and it kind of took me back to my childhood, finding all the North American just colubrids out in the yard and stuff. And
Yeah.
it's there's just so many of them. They're really cool and versatile, and we just wanted to get every variety that we could, try to breed them and see what the babies are like.
Yeah. Yeah. And I never, personally, I never dove deep into the corns, but like sometimes when I see some of these animals, like I have a real appreciation for them. I feel like even in my own head, I just write them off like, they're just corns. But like some of these animals, man, are just like, they're insane. And I have a couple here. I have a very young pair of 2024s. I'm looking forward to them growing up and seeing what I could do with them down the line. But yeah, I mean, corn snakes are cool. I mean, they're a classic, man. And I've talked about it a million times, but when I was working at my pet store job, corns were one of the first snakes I learned how to breed, or that I saw breed and hatch eggs from. And it was always this, we bred a visual normal to a visual albino and would get a whole mix of offspring in the clutch with a whole bunch of genes. It was always super, super fun. So I really do have an appreciation for corns because that's what I learned a lot on, especially genetics and all that stuff. So
they're cool. They're cool for sure. And that's as far as like genes that we've gotten into or how we kind of built the collection. We have a couple of people, Eric Westmoreland's about 2 hours north of us. And then
yeah,
Chris Nicholas is another pretty big corn breeder, and he's about 45 minutes south of us. And Chris does a lot of lavender stuff. He has a bunch of stuff, and so does Eric. But Chris has a lot of lavender, and then Eric has quite a bit of sun-kissed. So we have quite a bit of lavender and sun-kissed, and just anything we've been able to get off those guys. They're a couple great, breeders, and we trust them a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. And then, beyond the corns, you've gotten into some other cool species too, like some milk snakes, some kings. Where in the collection building did you start diverging into some of these other species as well? Because I know, especially with colubrids, and because corns do stay relatively small, you can easily get I would say an overwhelming collection size fast.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
definitely.
So where did all that start coming into play?
So we started picking a lot more up basically when I, wanted to get more into it. Basically, Cassidy was really liking it still. And then I, started liking it a lot more. And I started listening to a lot of your podcast and a lot of Colubrid and Colubroid radio. And there's just so many passionate people with so many projects. It's hard not to pick some stuff up after you listen to some of those. But
it really is.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I cut you off there.
I just was going to say, I just really like the North American colubrids. So, I mean, I follow all the pages on Facebook, and, I'm looking in old Peterson field guides and stuff. And it's just cool to kind of get some of maybe locality stuff and how it looks true to nature, but also we really like the morphs. So, I mean, it grew kind of when I started liking it more too. And I like the Lamprey peltis better than she does. So, I mean, we still do a lot of corns because I love the corns too, but I really wanted to get heavier into more of the common king snakes and milk snakes and stuff. So
awesome. Well, cool, man. Yeah. So the 2025 breeding season, kind of like how we introduced this, how many clutches are we at already on the ground?
I think we're at 30 right now, which we might have another one today, but we're starting to taper off quite a bit. That's almost everybody's first clutch. So we'll be at about 32 clutches on the first. And then I'm hoping to only have about maybe like 8 or so on a second clutch.
Doubles. Okay.
Like a double clutch. Yeah.
Gotcha. That could get overwhelming quick. And I've always said this, as a responsible colubrid breeder, you have to really know what you're getting into, especially with animals like corns and like cow kings and Mexican black kings. Like that 30 clutches, like, I don't know, do you have an egg count there?
Yeah, 30 clutches. We've had about here, I wrote it down. We've had probably about 5 of them have been complete slugs or real close to it. And we have roughly 300 eggs so far.
Yeah. Yeah, like that's no joke. That's no joke. So anyone watching who's a newer breeder, like I just want you to hear that, take that to mind, and just like be like, okay, build slowly is what I always recommend. Which I assume you guys kind of did. It's a slow build, and you get up to the point where you can sustain it well. And at that point, for that many clutches, are you breeding your own rodents or?
We do supplement quite a bit. I mainly just breed for pinkies, so I just check them every day and try to pull the pinks. And then what I can, I take the adults and kind of replenish. But we buy most of ours from bigger companies and stuff like Reptiles and ARS, stuff like that. It just makes it easier to feed the adults, and that's one of the main reasons we kind of got away from doing so many like ball pythons and stuff, because it's just so easy to feed the colubrids from babies to, I mean, it's a different ball game altogether.
Yeah, I've thought about that too, and I'm just like, the convenience of ordering frozen rodents. And I have a new guy now because I used to get them locally, now I don't, but it's still a buddy of mine who ships frozen rodents, and I'm like, this is great. It's so convenient. He could send them right to the house, and like it's whatever. As opposed to for my ball pythons, I gotta drive about an hour 20 round trip every week for good priced rodents. I don't mind the drive because it gets me out of the house, and like I pay a good price for them, so I don't really mind. But yeah, it's a different ball game when you can feed everything frozen.
Yeah, for sure. And I had my own rats too. I mean, it wasn't that big a deal. It's just it's definitely different. I mean, for somebody that's never kept both, it's wildly different for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So so besides palmetto, what are some of the other, when it comes to the corns, what are some of the other big genes that you would say are like kind of foundational to your projects? What's some stuff that's scattered throughout your collection that you kind of like working with?
Yeah, no, in the corns, I wrote down some of them, but we do quite a bit with mandarin, which a lot of people do. It's a really cool gene, and it pairs well. Or it's Castani, and then it pairs well with Amel, which is mandarin, and we've been kind of working that and maybe putting it into like pied side or working with Sunkissed in that realm. I know some people have. Most everything we're going for has already been made, but it just looks really cool. It's not everything looks cool when there's a million genes stacked, but 3 to 4 visuals definitely looks really cool in most corn snake combinations. So yeah, that, and then lavender, several different kinds of palmetto. So we have some anery palmettos, charcoal in them, amel, caramel. We work with some red factor stuff, red factor snow.
Nice.
That's pretty much, red factor is pretty much in snow for now. And we did produce some pretty like nice pink babies last year. Now we have some high white, reverse Okatee, like a high white amel basically stuff, which she actually slugged out on us. So I might not have that this year, but other than that, it's pretty much pied side, different variations of that, amel, fire pied stuff.
I'm going to pull this picture up from your Instagram. Just to kind of show.
Mm-hmm.
There it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's a bright orange.
Yeah, and that picture, it looks really good. Cassidy, she takes pretty much every picture that we have, and she does a really good job. But that's a het Castani, and then a Mandarin, which is an A male Castani, and
Nice.
they're just really nice animals. That het Castani, I don't know where that came from off the top of my head. Might have been from Eric, but I'm not sure. But the other one, the really red one's from VMS, or before they went out of business.
Gotcha.
And yeah, they're really, really good looking animal. That's pretty much how it looks in person too. There's a lot of red.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Just so everyone, oh, I hit the stop sharing. I didn't mean to do that. Hold on. Going back. Uh, just so everyone can see that I'm not exaggerating about the egg pictures, because you scroll and you scroll and you see eggs and then you see more eggs and then there's some more for you. So they're looking pretty swell this year. Um, yeah, just some really cool animals. So you got some snakes. You mentioned Eric, and I'm sorry, the other guy's name,
Chris Nichols.
Chris Nichols. Okay, I'm
Mhm.
not familiar with him, but okay, no problem.
He sells as himself on like Morph Market and stuff, but
Okay,
I don't think he's super involved anymore. He used to do like Tinley and stuff back in the day. He's been breeding quite a while, but both of them pretty into corn snakes.
yeah, nice.
Yeah,
And
those those eastern rats right there, the white sides. I'm excited
yeah,
about those. We never bred rats, which I know you're kind of into like the western
yeah,
rats, whatever. But they were neat. The eggs when we pulled them out, they were somewhat fresh, but they were pretty calcified. I don't know if that's something you see in the Texas rats too, if they're like fairly hard coming out. But it seemed like all of them were more like a traditional egg, not quite that hard, but harder in
hmm.
general.
I don't have
Pretty soft.
like um I'm trying to find the right word for it, like recent recollection of how corn snake eggs feel fresh.
Oh yeah, that's
Um, but no, I don't know. I guess I think it depends how fast you catch the eggs or not.
right.
If you're
Yeah.
catching the eggs super fast, like yeah, they're gonna be that like slimy kind of
Mhm.
almost rubbery feeling, but they'll harden up after
Yeah,
relatively quickly.
pretty quick for sure.
Yeah.
No, we're excited. We got right there's another species where it's kind of a first. Well, I guess it's not a first for us. We had them last year too, but that's both male and female kind of look like that, and it was actually like an Oreo bred to a Halloween. I think we got those from Chad Gordon, and
Okay.
so they kind of throw either way. You can get real white animals, or you can get more of like the orangish, like apricot that you would call it. And we got some pretty black ones last year. We held back, but hopefully we'll have, I don't know, 4 or 5 out of that clutch.
Cool.
Mhm.
Awesome. And I guess we'll kind of get into this. What is your general keeping style for and I know you keep mostly North American, like besides the
Mhm.
ball pythons pretty much. Like what are you do you have like the same kind of care for everyone? What's the method? If you want to kind of just go through your entire rigmarole of husbandry.
Yeah, for sure. We try to keep most of the adult colubrids in a ambient room, so about 80 degrees or anywhere from 78 to like 81 or so. We try to hold that temperature pretty steady. We do give heat to some of the like more western colubrids if we feel like they're maybe hanging out on the back end of their. We try to
Yeah.
give everybody the choice, and then if they seem to be hanging out on the cooler side, we just pretty much run everybody ambient. But yeah, more or less, I try to stay in to the colubrids that feed similarly, have kind of similar digestive rates, it seems like, and then I cool them all in the same way, and try to keep them all remotely the same. When you're keeping like milk snakes versus corns, you definitely want to keep like a hide in there all the time. So there's like slight differences between certain species, but more or less, yeah. I mean, we keep the colubrids sort of similar on aspen bedding, 8
Yeah.
or 16-ounce water dish, and a hide, usually a couple hides.
Yeah. You're keeping in racks, I assume.
We do keep in racks. I don't have
Yeah.
only vivarium or like tank I have is I have a snake for my kid, and I keep it
Gotcha.
in a setup like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, everything else is
Nice.
in rack setup.
Cool.
And
You
we
using
got
like oh no, I
sizes
see it now. You're using like ARS racks?
pretty much entirely. We
Yeah.
use quite a bit of vision racks too, but
Okay.
and I think vision's a really good size, especially for juveniles. They're V35S. It's kind of like maybe
Yeah.
3 inches tall. It's a really good size.
Yeah. Especially for corns. I would imagine that's a solid size for most adults.
Oh yeah, for sure. We bumped
Yeah.
them up. I like to give them a little more space if possible, and it's easier to put like lay boxes in there and stuff. So we got a 55 series rack, which is like a little longer and
Yeah.
a little bigger than.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, that's true. Because it is the 35S it's not that deep.
Not that deep, which we do have 35s too, which they're like double as deep. And that's what we were keeping all of our adults in last year and never had any problems or anything. Some of them looked pretty small, or some of them looked pretty big for the enclosure. So I was like, well, we probably better bump them up. And now we use them 35s for like male corn snakes, pretty much all the male
Yeah.
corn snakes. And then the S's, the males go just fine in those too, but it's mainly for juveniles, and then 55s for pretty much every other North American like female that we have. And then in the other one, or in like we have a 70 series rack as well, or most of one. And I keep like all the Hondurans in that, and
Nice. Yeah.
any like not quite full grown. You could keep a black milk in it for sure, but we also have like an 80 series rack, which is like they're only 2 wide on a 70 series
Yeah.
platform. That would be 3. And the black milk, we have a pretty big male black milk that I think he needs that. So I keep both of them in that style. But
Gotcha.
we got several different sizes.
Yeah, I'm gonna eventually, when it comes to the time that I need it, I'm gonna need a professional rack system or something going into the future. I just kind of have 3 mishmash like PVC racks. There's, I have a, V70, some 55 series ARS tubs, and then like a V18 rack, which I have 18s and FB5s. But yeah, I'm gonna need the extra space for all my adult snakes. But I'm debating between the ARS or Freedom Breeder. I don't know what I'll quite pick, but one of the two at some point.
They have about the same price, but that's kind of the cool thing is, you don't have to spend a lot of money if you don't want. I mean, a lot of people keep kind of old school racks with like either PVC or melanin or whatever they call that, melamine, rack style with the smooth sides, and they do just fine. If nothing's molded, it really doesn't matter so much. Just the ARSs definitely are like way easier to pull out, and they stand really like sturdy and less of a risk of like a fire hazard or something probably. So we decided to invest in them, but they're definitely nice for sure.
Nice. Cool. Let's see. I felt like there was another question I had. Oh, what about brumation? What's your how do you do that? Because I know you're in like central, like north central. I don't know exactly where you're at. Where are you guys located?
Yeah, for sure. We're as far south as you can get on the eastern side of Iowa, right on the Mississippi. But And so it
Gotcha.
gets pretty cold. We're like zone 5B or something, or 6B. I can't remember. It can get negative in our area. So to get down to like negative maybe 10 on occasion. And then through most of the winter, it'll hang out around like 40 or so. And that's, we get a pretty solid, it isn't always consistent, but we get a pretty solid 3 months of cool enough weather to brumate in, basically. And that'll, I really like to try to hold them anywhere from like mid 40s to mid 50s,
Gotcha.
which,
And what are you doing for that? Like in terms of brumation, are you putting them in a cold room and letting them get there, or are you doing something manually to make them cold? What's your
yeah, I
go-to?
do. I've always had a fan. So the first year that we did it, we didn't have a whole lot of colubrids, and I used a closet on an outside wall and just basically drilled a 4-inch hole in the wall and put a fan in there. And more or less, I did the same thing last year, except for we added on upstairs. We basically have like a 2020 or 20 by 20 snake room, and it's all kind of open. It's almost like a basement, but we're in a berm house, so the upstairs is more or less the basement
Gotcha.
for us. So we added on about 10 feet, like 10 by 20 basically. And last year had about a 10 by 10 room for our brumation room. And I did kind of the same thing. It wasn't on an outside wall, so I just ran like ducting and then did fans to pull in cold air from outside, and it worked pretty good. But this year, now that we have quite a few more that are ready to go down into brumation, we'll just do the whole 20 by 20 room, and then I'll put all the pythons we have left and boas and stuff in a 10 by 10 room and keep them
Gotcha.
hot throughout the winter. And we have a window in that 20 by 20 room, so I'm just going to put basically a fan in the window and put it on a cool thermostat and let it
Nice.
hopefully get down to about 50 for 3 months.
Cool. Yeah. That works. I mean, that's probably like the best case scenarios when you could do something like that and have a whole dedicated room and just get the room cold and
Oh
just let it roll.
yeah. Yeah, we heard a couple podcasts where people were doing that, especially when somebody has like a building, so they'll just get like their entire building cold. And I'm like, man, that would be the best thing in the world if we could just
Yeah.
cool this entire room. And now that we're predominantly colubrids, that's the other cool thing about only keeping them is if you're going to breed them, yeah, you can just cool the whole room. You know, if you have a room, you can
Yeah.
cool the whole thing. So
Yeah.
even the babies can be cooled. I don't we now we're going to use that brumation room, which is a 10 by 10 for just babies. So we won't cool that room, but we'll just cool every sub adult and every adult and, anything that we're not planning on selling basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Um, all right. Cool. And what about California king snakes, man? Those are another classic that I like. I see you guys working with some cool cow kings. What's kind of your plans with those guys? You kind of just enjoy them?
Yeah, I actually have grown to really like all of the like common. I hate to even say it, but like Getula, like common,
Getula, yeah,
But all of that. We have some Desert Kings. We have some Cow Kings. I'm just really impressed with how good looking Cow Kings can be and still be very different from like a corn snake. And
yeah,
I wouldn't lie to anybody. They're a lot different in like temperament and feeding response and stuff like that. But they're still super easy to keep, super easy to breed. Really, really great looking snakes. And they're, I wouldn't say less active than a corn, but they definitely like to hide quite a bit.
yeah,
So, which I think a juvenile corn likes to hide a ton too, but um, they're pretty easy to keep in like a confined space, is more or less what I'm saying. But yeah, no, we're pretty excited about the corns. We had those lavender dot dashes, and then be
yeah.
like hypermel snows, hypermel lavender snow type um, pairings this year, and we're pretty excited. Next year we'll have some black and white, like high white, 50-50 type stuff. That too.
Very nice. I have a hard time like just understanding at this point. I feel like cow kings market wise are just like in the dumpster, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense to me. I think they're really cool snakes. I really enjoy them. They're super variable.
Mhm.
Um, besides your banded ones, almost no two look exactly the same. It's
Oh,
very hard.
for
Yeah.
sure. And there's some really, really cool looking ones. There's a lot of people into them. So, I mean, there's like definitely quite a few breeders working towards producing new stuff and
Yeah.
just making every combination you could think of. But I totally agree. I mean, I think that the Cow Kings are some of the best looking snakes you can own for sure.
Yeah.
Just if they didn't have the attitude, I think that they would be insanely popular. But uh, they're just a little feisty at times. Not
Yeah.
really feisty, but just
A
really
little
hungry.
You know what's funny? Mine don't. I have two small ones. Mine don't bite me right now, and I used to have one years back that would go to bite me. I usually wouldn't let it, but these two don't bite me. They just they try to just run away from me, and they try to shit on me.
Yeah,
That's the behavior I get, is them pooping or peeing on me and just trying to get away.
yeah, yeah. We have that too, and I think that's mainly the babies. Like I don't get bit by babies very often either, but I definitely get pooped on a lot, and that's the same with like the MBKs and I think the MBKs are a little more chill. Seems like as babies,
Yeah.
really bitey wise, but just as far as once they poop on you about 3 times, I feel like an MBK kind of stops. And cow kings and milk snakes can be pretty crazy as far as pooping on you all the time.
Yeah, definitely. You know what? I feel like I don't know if someone told me this on an episode recently. Maybe I forgot about it,
Mhm.
or part of the reason I just sorry for any audio listener. Part of the reason for the price drop for Cal Kings was the Europe ban. That flooded the market with them, since keepers overseas sold them all back to the US. Thanks, Purple Church.
I got
That makes sense. Yeah, I guess I got nothing to follow up with on that. I guess that kind of makes
you. Yeah,
economic sense.
for sure.
Um, Tiffany in the chat asked, "What about your Pituophis? Or are those still growing up?"
That'd
Wait, that
be
was to you.
that'd be on for you, Joe, or for me.
No, for you.
Oh, for me? I've never had any pits. I like
Oh,
Pituophis a lot, but in Iowa, it's kind of a gray area whether or not we can have
oh,
both,
right, yeah, that's
and they're
true.
all kind of thrown under the same species as far as like Pituophis, whatever the conifer, whatever say or whatever,
Yeah,
that sort of thing. So it's all like subspecies. I'd love to have like lime pines and some of the pine snakes, some of the gophers. They're really beautiful, but we just you know can't keep everything and not sure if it's going to be okay or not, so we don't.
yeah. No, I hear you. I haven't, I haven't been in a place yet. I mean, where I've lived, that I've had to like worry about the laws, and I guess I'm kind of blessed for that, but
Yeah.
it definitely sucks on
Oh, yeah.
keeping wise, especially if you want those animals. Um, I've never had really a native species to that state, and yeah, like what Eric said, I thought it was just no bulls in Iowa,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I think you
Oh,
could
cool. Yeah.
I
And
think you
Eric
could keep
has
like
told me that.
gophers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's listed as bulls. It really is. And that's so you'd probably be in the clear either way. But
yeah,
um it's more or less, it's more or less that we just basically can't keep everything. So I don't want to skate any lines or anything. I do like the pines though. I might be persuaded to get one at some point. But yeah,
nice.
they're cool for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I just had the pines are cool. I just had Jason Nelson on, and man, those gopher snakes were smoking.
Yeah, he's got
Those
some incredible stuff for sure.
yeah, yeah. All right. Um, what are you looking to do in the future when it comes to corn snakes? Because I mean, there's so many genes out there, and I'm sure there's still like combinations that like haven't been made yet. But
Mhm.
what's your idealistic of where you want to take your corn snake collection?
Um, it's kind of hard to tell. I think things change quite a bit. That being said, I don't know if it's just because I really like corns or if everybody's kind of likes corns pretty well. It seems like if you're working towards a project and you've got some dedication as far as holding back good animals and trying to produce good kind of line bred and quality stuff from quality people, there'll always be some value. So like right now we're working with some of the Cassani stuff and pied and the lavender and stuff like that, and it's just and sun kissed. And even though all of it's been made, it's still pretty valuable animals, and it's um, just basically those projects together, more or less what we'll be working on until something kind of new pops up or something catches our eye, and then we'll get trio of those and try to start breeding for some cool snakes in that direction. It's always changing for us.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And obviously, we're talking about it. You're producing a lot of stuff. How many clutches did you have last year as opposed to like this year so far? Was it
We
less?
had, let me go ahead. We had, sorry, I'm gonna pull up my sheets and see how many we
Nah, no
had.
problem.
Let's see. Figure last year. We had about it looks like about 25 overall. And I'd
Okay.
say one, two, three, at least 5 or 6 of those were either doom or we'd keep some Doomerals boas. So one of them was the Doomerals boa. Actually, she had a bunch of stillborn and then some ball pythons. So about 5 were those, maybe about 20 clutches of colubrids altogether.
Cool. And how did you do with selling the ones you wanted to sell?
It was good. We got about 20
Yeah.
left right now. So we had, I
Yeah.
think, of 20 last year. We didn't have as good of luck on several clutches. So out of 20 clutches last year of the colubrids, I think we got about 160 babies or so. And
Okay.
it was, it's went good selling them. And we didn't have anything too crazy. We had a couple high color ERO clutches last year, some like red factor snow stuff,
Nice.
palmetto stuff, and then MBKs, a lot of MBKs.
Nice.
But they're all stuff that people likes, and I think that's kind of cool with the colubrids. Is it seems like they move no matter what, as long as people like them. And I'm not saying you could
Yeah.
have 600 and move them all, but it's it seems like people are really into colubrids, and if you got what they want, then there's hardly too much supply. But
Well, that's the reason I asked, because like, everyone that or I won't say everyone, but some people act like, the reptile market's dead, whatever. But hearing you say, you made 160 babies and you're down to 20 of them for sale left. That's for sale or like including holdbacks?
no, that is for sale. We probably had
For
about
sale.
20, or I don't know if we had 20 holdbacks, but probably at least 10 holdbacks from last year. And
Still, you're selling a ton of snakes. It's always a good thing. And like I've been reiterating, like people who are really passionate making cool snakes are gonna sell their snakes. That's what it comes down to. And who do a good job with taking care of them, with marketing their stuff, like they're always gonna sell them. That's just how it is. It's as simple as that.
yeah,
So props to you
well,
guys
and the
because you're
people
doing
that
a good job.
if people are passionate about their projects, they don't really care to, hold on to them for a little while longer. Because I mean, other than the space that you have to keep them, the rodents aren't that much money, especially when you're talking about fairly. It ain't got to be that expensive of a snake for the rodents not to add up to much. Even if you got to keep 100 or 200 babies for another year, it's just a lot of work to feed them. But it's not really
Yeah.
that much money. So I mean, and then you have bigger babies the next year around. So I mean, I don't know. I think it's going to be good, but we'll definitely be put to the test this year. And Kat takes care of most of the babies, so she's probably
Yeah.
not ready to slap me any minute. But it's it'll be different, and we'll see how they sell. And if we have a ton of babies next year, and then we'll scale back. It's not the end of the world. It's easy to cool them and then just maintain, feed them, and maybe we'll do half the thing next year and half the collection the next. We just love keeping snakes and having them for
Yeah.
sale. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. This question too. Do you think Tessera is a hybrid? Some people believe it possibly originated from crossing a Newport Cow King to a corn. I've heard this as well. I have no opinion on it because I have no Tessera corn snakes, so I have zero dog in that fight. What do you think,
Yeah.
Travis?
That's fair. I've heard that too. Just from other podcasts and stuff, and I think they may have brought it up at Colubrid Fest or something. I forget where I heard it from, but I don't know. I mean, I think that they look exactly like a corn. So I mean, if it is a hybrid, it's a damn good one. That's what I would say. But,
Yeah.
they're really cool, and we have some Tessera in our collection. I think it kind of got like a pastel wrap with ball pythons, where it's like being overused almost in things, or people feel that way anyway. Personally, I think it's really cool, and there's tons of combos that look way better with Tessera, and it's just cool. Yeah, definitely a cool gene.
Gotcha. Yeah. In terms of pattern morphs, I enjoy Motley personally. I think I'd rather a Motley over a Tessera if it were me picking, but that's just my opinion.
That's fair. I think pattern morphs, Sunkist is up there for sure as far as like head pattern. Sunkist really cool. And then I personally love stripe stuff. I think a lot of people do. Motley is kind of in that same realm, so I really enjoy Motley too. Not as many people. The cool thing about corn snakes is almost every gene has been around for 30 years or so.
Yeah.
And, there's still stuff out there that when you see a nice opal stripe or lavender stripe, I mean, that combo has been around for a long time, and it's not being like overly mass produced, or there's still, if you produce a clutch of them, you're probably going to sell every one of them within a year this time, because they still look really cool, and there's just so many possibilities that people just like. I feel like that's kind of the main difference between it and maybe like the ball python thing is, everybody's kind of chasing the newest thing, and that's true in corn snakes too. But there's just so many people that like different things, and there's kind of a niche for everything, where there is in ball pythons too, but it's a little different, I think. So
yeah. Now here's a good question for you, going right off of that, because you keep the ball pythons as well. We have a similar interest in the hypo puzzle stuff.
Yeah.
And with where corn snakes are at in today's reptile market, because they're down at like a relatively, I'd say like most corn snakes are really affordable, whether you're a pet keeper, a breeder, like whatever it is, because like even your high end corns are what, 500 maybe, if that.
Yeah, that's pretty high price for a corn for sure. I mean, they can go higher, of course, but 500 like steep for sure.
Yeah. So what I would say, like, what differences or similarities would you say you see between the corns and then something like the ball pythons? Because I think like ball pythons, no matter what, I feel like will always be volatile as hell when it comes to the market and prices and whatnot. But I feel like the corns have really stabled out. And is that solely because like they've just had more time to do that compared to the ball pythons, or what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think so for sure. I think that you see more of like a ball python market in hognose snakes. So I mean, like I don't know if it's necessarily true, but a lot of hognose morphs have came about somewhat recently. Not all of them, of course, but Western hogs I'm speaking about. But I think corn snake morphs, there's definitely some that have came out within the last, like 10, 15 years or so. or been discovered, I guess, within the last 10 to 15. But a lot of it happened, in the 90s and
Years ago. Yeah.
a long time ago. So yeah, I mean, I think you're right on the money as far as I would agree with you in the fact that like I think it's just kind of aged, to the point where everything's kind of leveled out, and people are getting back. I think more people are getting into colubrids now that ball pythons have taken a dip, and there's a bunch of different corn combinations that people are seeing for the first time that are just, I think, really excited about them, myself included. And it's just fun to work with all different combinations.
Yeah. Now I have 2 corn snakes. And when I saw the 2 of them, when I saw pictures of them, I said I had to have them, and I got them. My 2 corns are, let's see, what is it? The first one I got is from Justin at Palmetto Coast. It's
nice.
What is it? Red Factor Ghost Motley. I think there's another name for that when you combine the red factor in there, whatever it is. But that's what that one is. And then I got a Miami Hypo Motley, which is just a really fantastic animal. And I'm just like, Dad, these are 2 really cool corn snakes. So I'm enjoying growing them.
Heck yeah, man. And that's the other cool thing is, they're really fun to watch grow. Corn snakes generally look pretty crappy as babies, and then they grow into like some stunning adults. I mean, several of them, change significantly. Every one of them changed significantly in color, and even, the pattern widens out. So it really changes a lot. Corns definitely are almost like translucent when they come out. So, I mean, when they get to adulthood, they just fill into that color and they look so nice.
I think some of them are drab as adults, but there's some that just absolutely pop when they get to that size. And I'm just like, whoa, like as an adult. But even like, the palmettos are really impressive as adults. They're like way better looking than baby palmettos.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was actually going to make that comparison because they're like, when they come out, I mean, they're just pink, basically, like, see-through. And then as they get bigger and bigger, by the time they hit that like kind of 1.5, 2-year mark, they just look like insanely different. And so anytime we do a show, or even if we're selling on Morph Market, I try to give somebody an idea of what the difference is between those ages, because I could really sell somebody. I know it sells me a lot of times on some stuff if I can see the adults.
And speaking of that, how have shows done for you? Because like you said, you did Daytona, you did Colubrid Fest. How have those benefited you guys? And how about comparing to like online sales?
We actually didn't do Daytona. We just went down to look. And
okay.
Yeah.
Right.
We're not local at all, so I wish we could. But it's
my bad. When you said that, when you said that before, I was like, I thought it was the way you worded it, and it messed me up in my head. I thought you guys were just there to visit, but
no, they've been good. I mean, overall, we've tried about everything within a 3-hour radius from us, and luckily enough, we have a lot of shows. Like I probably got, or a lot for me anyway. We got like 5 different locations around us that we could be at within 3 hours, which I know it sounds like a lot, but we're in the middle of absolute nowhere. So it's, we're not near any big cities, but we are, within 3 hours of a lot of big cities because we're kind of centralized. So, no, they've been good. It's, they've been worth it. Pretty much every single one we've done has been worth it. We do almost exclusively St. Louis shows anymore. This year, we'll probably do a couple of Show Me's St. Louis shows, NARBC St. Louis. If we could ever get into doing NARBC Tinley, we'd probably do that because it's about 4 hours from us.
Okay.
And then Colubrid Fest last year was about 5.5. This year's about 7. So I'd go anyway because it's just awesome.
Can't miss out.
Just so you guys know, Cassidy's here now too.
Hey, Cassidy.
Hello.
She does all the work, and I just spend the money.
And mid half a commercial here, but I forgot to say it at the beginning of the episode. Guys, Colubrid Fest, September 12th to 14th at the Allen County War Memorial Coliseum in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I will be there. Travis and Cassidy will be there. Come hang out, come say hi. It's going to be a really good time. So, and if you have any questions about it, you could always, I'm sure you could ask both of us. So, but you could definitely send me a message if you need to be convinced, because I will convince you. But,
yeah. Thanks. We got a lot of snakes to sell. We need everybody to come.
Yep.
No,
Right,
that'll be fun. We're super excited for it. But
yeah. Cassidy, I know I've been talking to Travis the whole time, but where did the snakes kind of come in to when you were getting into things? Were you always into reptiles, or?
No, I mean, I've been into animals my whole life. I mean, I've always enjoyed animals and had pets and stuff growing up, but reptiles definitely came from him 100%. When I met him, he had a ball python and some leopard geckos. And at first, I mean, I was ready to hold it as soon as I saw it, but I was like a little nervous. And and then I liked the ball python quite a bit. And he told me that he always kind of wanted to breed. And so we got into it just a little at first, and then very quickly became obsessed with it. Basically, it was all we talked about and all we watched and all we researched. And I mean, it kind of became a huge interest for both of us. And and then I'm sure he told you that I really liked corn snakes and colubrids. And he let me get kind of whatever I wanted, which was like the highest snake on the totem pole at the time for corns was the palmetto. It was somewhat new and still kind of expensive, but he let me get a pair of those, and then I started getting all sorts of corns. So
awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then that's super cool. And the corns are really awesome, and I have been saying the whole episode, I don't know if you were hearing in the background, but you guys have built a really nice collection, and you're just pumping out eggs, so it's super cool to see, and looking forward to seeing your production this year at Colubrid Fest. Definitely.
It'll be good.
Someone mentioned it in the chat also, the nest boxes you guys have made. I know you've done your own. Are they 3D printed or what are they? You've like designed your own stuff?
Yeah, I had the 3D printers. I'm an engineer by trade.
Okay.
So I've done some 3D modeling work as far as like gear design and stuff. So doing like nominal kind of making stuff like that isn't too bad for me. And we already had the 3D printers. My dad sells like thermal optics and night vision optics. And he had me print some stuff for him. We worked together and print like accessories and stuff for those optics and different like shooting stuff and stuff like that. So after the talk last year, I had designed something real similar for the leopard geckos, just as like a lay box for them. And I never really thought of it for the snakes because it's considerably bigger. So I just always used kind of Rubbermaid, which we still do in some part.
Right.
I printed up a bunch of them and thought I'd give them a try, and the snakes definitely like them. We haven't had hardly any issues this year with anybody being egg bound, and I haven't had to help anybody. So I mean, we've had some slugs that have gotten stuck, but they've passed them all. So
nice.
It's been good. I really appreciate the talk they had last year. It seemed to have helped quite a bit using the dark boxes, and I know there's a couple other people that are doing them now too. So I think quite a few people will be using them soon.
Yeah. I mean, it's super cool, and hopefully it's something that like kind of changes the hobby. It seems like a lot of people like the idea too, and it looks a little bit nicer than a plastic tub.
Yeah, for
nice.
sure.
Yeah,
and everybody makes them a little different. I think 6x9 is kind of like the standard for most like corns and kings and stuff like that, and this worked pretty well for us. but it's been cool.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Let's see. I'm just kind of taking a look on your Instagram. You have gray banded kings too.
Yeah, that's we picked up a trio of those and at Tenley a couple years ago, and I can't. They're Howard's Draw, right? Yeah, Howard's Draw. We got those from Matt Turner, which is Selective Origin. Yeah, Selective Origins.
Nice.
Like the something I really like about those like gray bands and kind of the Mexicana complex of snakes is like it seems like everybody that's in them or most people that's in them are super huge on locality and like want to keep everything pure and just really care about their projects like super a whole bunch. So it's a cool kind of group to be in.
Yeah, it's interesting what like what group of people with each species decides they want to really dedicate their like this has to be like this, how strict they are with lineage and stuff like that. I'm like, I feel like everyone should like kind of adopt to these, like with the way I've said it before, with the way like chondro breeders keep records. I think I think it's very almost inspirational. I feel like more people should do it with especially species they like really care about and they're really trying to work hard and push. Like, you know, you should be documenting stuff the way they do. Because that's how we push projects forward. That's how you keep track of, you know, records for yourself. And yeah, keep it going.
For sure. That's we kind of learn about it more or less in like Morelia. We got some we have Poplin carpet pythons.
Nice.
And we got them from like Nick Mutton, and he keeps wicked. You know, I'm sure you've probably seen that. He keeps crazy logs on where he got stuff and what the breedings have been, and you know, if it's feasible for everybody, which it should be, it's you know, you should keep really good records on all your snakes, and it just makes it easier to, you know, not mix up what you've gotten and where you've gotten it from. And I don't know, I think it makes it easier to be involved with them if you keep really good records, for sure.
Yeah. Are you using any platform like Husbandry Pro or anything to keep record of your stuff?
We don't. That's you want to talk about it?
Yeah, sure. We've tried those in the past, and they're actually very well set up and very intricate. I was super impressed with all of the options and everything like that. But since we've kind of taken a turn into so many colubrids, I kind of just keep my own sheets. So I just use Google Sheets for a lot of it, and then I organize a lot by racks and on how to keep track of feeding. And then we have a lot of like colored tape and magnets and stuff that are kind of just quick visual indicators. So I don't have to look things up as often to slow me down. So I can just see on the tub what it, you know, just those quick reminders of certain things. So we basically keep all of our own logs, and some of it's still written on paper and notebooks and stuff, but I've mostly got it all converted into just like really simple Google Sheets to keep track of everything. And it's been working pretty good so far for me.
Cool. Yeah. You know, I've heard a mix of things like the old Google Sheets. I'll be completely honest. I'm not using much of anything right now personally. I have Husbandry Pro. I pay for Husbandry Pro, but I don't really use it.
That's right.
So I feel like I should use it because I do like the whole idea of the platform. Sometimes I just find that like if I'm moving in a hurry, like I just don't want to click the buttons. I don't want to take the time to click and do the stuff. And they do make ways that makes it easier for you to input information because you could do like bulk like activities and whatever. But I don't know, for whatever reason, I cannot keep it consistent when I want to. But yeah, maybe I'll change my mind as the collection grows. But right now I'm not at the point where I feel that I necessarily need it because I know everything. I know if I open that tub exactly what snake's in there. Like I'm not lost yet, but maybe I'll get to a point where I'm not.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, I definitely think there's a place, and I think that there's ways to make it super easy for you. And if you watched like a bunch of their YouTube videos, you could probably get really versed, just like using Photoshop or something. It's hard until you know how to do it. And then it's pretty easy. But I just think, kind of the key things for us is knowing where it came from, when we got it, and then like if it laid or if it's having troubles. Like I don't really care. We've got a bunch of quite a few snakes, obviously, and most of them are doing great. So I don't really need to know that they're all doing great. I just need to know which ones are not doing good, basically. We keep track of that pretty close and keep track of pairings and clutches and if we've sold or bought an animal and that sort of thing a lot.
Yeah.
Pretty much all that we feel like we need, I think.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, those birds outside sound very peaceful. Your whole background and hearing the birds, it sounds so peaceful out there.
Yeah.
And it's so bright. It's still bright by you, whereas it's dark by me.
Yeah. No, the kids were up earlier, and we recently put this screen porch on. Actually, just like a weekend ago, we built it, and
okay,
we've been sitting out here a lot. So I was like,
nice.
We'll hear the kids.
It's a lot quieter than being around the kids.
We got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old boy, and they're both
okay
right now.
But. Yeah. Tiffany was asking in the chat, what's your work-life reptile balance like? Which is a good question, especially with 2 young ones. Because I'm sure them around sometimes would make it harder to do tasks if you're both needed and whatever. So, what's that kind of dynamic like?
Well, the cool thing about us is Cassidy stays home with the kids and does no joke, probably 80 to 90% of the work as far as like feeding and doing everything. And I just try to kind of help her clean and try to, see if females are going to be laying, kind of pop babies, stuff like that. I do some of it, but I don't do the large majority of kind of the day in, day out stuff. And she does that either when the 2-year-old's like napping or, our oldest is going to be in kindergarten next year. So she'll have quite a bit more time. And within the next like 3 years, we're hoping that, she'll have most of the day to do this and then I can just kind of help out a little bit here and there. But we try to spend a lot of time with the boys, and it doesn't really get in the way too much of doing that. We don't feel like, at least not with her being at home all the time.
Nice. Cool. Yeah, that's definitely a good dynamic that I'm sure that helps out a lot.
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
I feel bad for people that got to do it themselves. It's especially at this scale, because I mean, there's quite a few. I can think of quite a few corn snake breeders that do this scale by themselves with a job, and I'm like, that would be rough to do that. That'd be a lot of time. Just to feed.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any aspirations for species outside the North American stuff?
Yeah. You want to talk about it a little bit?
I'll think while you talk.
Okay. I wrote some of the species we have. I tried to take some notes because I'm like, we have way too much stuff. No, we've got a lot of North American species, but we do have we picked up some Russian rats. And we're really loving those. We do have some Antaresia that we picked up, which is like they're Stimson's pythons. And
I saw a picture of those.
And we could work, we're talking about maybe working with those a little more. I really think they're really cool little pythons.
Yeah.
But we never hatched any, that's kind of a big thing for us is seeing how the babies do and going from there. But I mean, pretty much that. We've got some milk snakes that are from like South America, as far as like the Hondurans and the blacks.
Gotcha.
And then the Papuans. Yeah, as far as getting into other stuff, we're pretty much capped right now.
Okay.
I think I really like it when somebody or when breeders try to focus on a few different species. So right now, I think we have 20 different, technically 20 different species of animals,
All
and
right.
I'd like to eventually get that down to maybe like 5 or so, and try to really focus in on 5 different species.
Yeah, I feel like especially at the beginning, it's easy to get a big collection of stuff,
Yeah.
but when you really find the projects that like you're really passionate about, that's when it starts to narrow down. And I'm sure I'll have, something similar happen to me down the road. And like there's quite a few species where I just have, a pair. I have a little bit of a Noah's Ark with a few animals. But there's some other stuff that I'd like to work a little bit harder, so I have a few more of them. But yeah,
we do too, for sure.
And we kind of like it that way because it gives us a chance to try things out and see, like, I know he's mentioned how the babies do for us, and like, because I want to see how they do and be confident in what I'm producing and selling. And, there's just so many different species. It's nice to try out some, and then we get really into the ones that we like and expand on those projects or different localities of them, and things like that. So I think we've expanded, but now we're picking favorites probably within the next few years and really focusing in on what we enjoy the most.
Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. I will say there's one North American species you're missing, and they're from Texas.
Yeah, I know. We've talked about that for sure. And, you've got some good looking stuff. So, it's hard to stay away from them for sure. That might be next on the list. But
listen, man, this podcast is called Colubrid Corruption for a reason. If I'm not here to make people get Texas rat snakes, I'm doing my job incorrectly.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's kind of cool about like the North American colubrids is, aside from maybe the Mexicana stuff, which can be finicky, of course, but I think a lot of the other stuff is kind of similar in the way that you can keep it. So I mean, it almost feels like you have one species, like Cow Kings, Corns, MBK. I mean, like several different ones.
That stuff you keep the same, and it's no problem.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, you count that as different species, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. It's pretty similar to one another. And you can say you have, 10 species and still have things that are almost exactly the same, care wise and breeding, feeding the babies, stuff like that. So.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Let's see. What am I missing? I don't know. I'm trying to see if if I'm missing anything. I think that was most of what I wanted to talk about tonight.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I always like talking to the corn snake breeders because here's where I stand on the corns. Like, I think corns are cool. I don't think I'm that guy to get the whole collection of them. I'll never have like a full corn collection, but I could really appreciate what you guys are doing and working some high quality animals like you guys, like Eric and, some of the other people I've had on the show. Like, I really enjoy seeing the collection, especially when like the eggs are pumping out. It's just like, like I've been saying, it's super cool.
Yeah. And they can have a lot of eggs, I mean.
Oh yeah.
Colubrids in general, but corns, I mean, can have some. It seems like they have consistently pretty decent clutches, and then if you got really healthy snakes, they could double clutch for you, and you could end up with a lot of babies quick. This year, kind of last year, we produced a lot of pink snakes, and we did fine selling them and stuff. But this year, we had about 60 eggs from those like red factor snows and stuff, and I'm like, man, these things are huge. They're like plenty big enough to double clutch, but I'm like, I don't need another, 60 of these snakes. This is crazy, And
at that point, what do you do? Do you just like ease off the gas of like feeding, or like Like, because I don't know, because I know some animals can work a little bit different. Like, do you slow off of feeding and not reintroduce the male? Is it just not reintroducing the male? How would you prevent a double clutch on something like corns, where it's pretty easy to?
Yeah, no, that's we ain't been doing it super long, so I mean, it'd be a better question for somebody that's more veteran breeder, but more or less for us, yeah. I mean, we try
Yeah.
not to, we'll give them a meal like almost immediately after because
Yeah.
we spent. But other than that, yeah, I mean, we might go, whereas something we'd want to double clutch would be feeding like every 3 days or 4 days afterwards. We might go like a week in between the first one, then a couple weeks, and hope to God that they don't double clutch. And then once it gets past that time, we'll just feed the crap out of them after that before brumation to try to get their body weight back up. But
Yeah.
I think if you slow off the feeding, I think it's kind of a crapshoot, honestly. But like,
Okay.
I think it can. I think it can help to not make them lay if you slow down on the feeding.
Okay.
But yeah, it's hard. And sometimes I think it's pretty hard to get them to stop double clutching. If they want to double clutch and they got a pretty decent body size, they're probably gonna anyway. So the kind of dance that you do with yourself is, do I feed a ton? And hopefully that it'll make it easier to pass if I just feed them a ton, try to reintroduce, and just produce more eggs so they don't get some stuck slugs or something. But there's always decisions to be made on that on that side of things.
Gotcha. All right, guys. Well, I want to get into our little wrap-up questions here before we leave for tonight. But yeah, anyone who's watching live, thank you. Make sure you hit that like button again. Throw a comment. Tell us what you enjoyed about the show. But yeah, so what's a big motivator for what keeps you guys going with reptiles? Because you've been in it for as you said, like not that long. I'd say we've been in around like the same time. Like started building our collections really big, but like there's a lot of discouragement around in the hobby, people getting out, all that stuff. But what really keeps like the passion burning for you guys?
I don't. You want me to answer? Okay.
Go first.
I don't know. For me personally, I think when we were kind of breeding the balls and bloods and stuff, I think I personally got pretty burnt out on that end of things, and being able to transition into colubrids and kind of bring me back to working with stuff that I'm more familiar with in the area really did it for me. And
Right.
so far, it's I haven't got tired of them even in the slightest. I've really got to try to limit myself from buying things because it can get out of hand quick. And
Oh yeah.
it's just everything's just so beautiful. It's easy to just buy everything that there is out there, and we kind of try to limit each other as far as what we're buying, and I do a terrible job and she does most of the limiting. But what about you? What would you say?
I mean, kind of what you said, but I'm just really passionate about colubrids in general, and now I just love them so much that I just don't ever see myself not having them, because I just really love to care for them, and it's fun to breed them and get the eggs and the babies, and then raise the babies up, and then have them as adults and see the whole growth that they go through. And I just really love them now, and I don't know, I can't really see myself not doing it at this point. So
yeah.
And we got 2 little kids that we'd love to have grow up around all of this and teach them about reptiles and snakes and all animals for that matter. But, we're really into reptiles, and, I teach them a little bit. And
I was going to say, how's the 4-year-old with them? Because I'm sure they have, a pretty good understanding of things at that point. Like, do they see like the reptiles?
Oh yeah. He's we set him up a little corn, and actually our 2-year-old likes it better than him most of the time.
Oh, really?
We don't I try not to let him, we let him hold him with supervision pretty often, a lot of the adults mainly, and then the little ones sometimes. But I don't recommend baby colubrids for 4-year-olds.
Oh no.
It's not,
Yeah.
and not that I was saying you were or anything. It's just, they don't have a ton of exposure around them, honestly, because they, are off on different things every day. They're
Yeah.
scatterbrained like crazy. So they love them, and they'll definitely be more involved in the future. But right now, we set them up. We try to give them a little exposure, and I do more. We ride around on me and my boy ride around on the e-bikes and flip 10 together, and I try
Nice.
to let him catch the snakes and stuff. And we don't really, I know we can have venomous snakes in our area, but we really don't have any venomous, so it's not a worry so much for us as far as taking him out and letting him walk through the woods and things like that.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah, no, they're into it, and it'd be fun to see how much they're into it here in like 10 years or so. But yeah.
Nice. Yeah. We had a good question from Mike in the chat here. How do you go about choosing your holdbacks?
Yeah, we kind of choose them together, and more or less, it's all on phenotypes, more or less, or if something's something that we want to work with in the future. But
I think it depends on not to interrupt, but
No,
I
you're
think
fine.
it depends on the project. Sometimes we're holding back like hets, like he said, if we're having a long-term project of things that we haven't produced before. So we're getting hets and keeping those. And then sometimes we're breeding for color and trying to, keep the brightest ones to then plug back into either the same project or expanding into a different project. So it can go a couple different ways, usually color or, keep the whole clutch of something if we really wanting to dive headfirst into the project and make sure that we have a good foundation for it. But
and colubrids, I think sometimes can take like we were talking about earlier, take quite a while to really show their colors. And that's another cool thing about keeping them for a little while is, if you're not really in a rush to sell them, whereas like, I have a job, and so, I mean, it's not our primary source of income at all. It's basically a hobby 100% for us. And that's, it's just nice to be able to keep quite a bit of stuff back. And then when we want to sell it, we just release, quite a few yearlings or so. And what we're kind of getting into. And I feel like a lot of selling, and marketing yourself is taking tons of pictures of really great looking adults on, either on eggs or in shed or whatever else. So, I mean, if you're able to hold back some really great looking animals, it's going to go a long way on, what you can sell. And, I think locality type stuff, obviously, you try to keep pure lines. So, I mean, you might hold back in that case, as far as just working in new blood or keeping things that are similar locale, or, there's different reasons, but main one's probably phenotype, especially for corn snakes, just the way that they look.
Cool. Have you had any big seller's remorse moments yet with any snakes?
Oh yeah, definitely so. It's always me for some reason making her sell a corn snake or something. We had a couple of really stunning lavenders from actually Chris Nicholas, and it was a lavender motley and an opal motley.
A couple opals, couple lavenders.
Yeah, a couple
with
lavenders.
Some nice heads.
And we sold it like it was three or four probably 2-year-old corns, or year and a half corns.
Yeah, probably close to 2.
Yeah.
And ironically, a Texas.
Oh yeah, leucistic. We had a Texas at one point in time, and then sold out of them for some reason. We picked up some Mineral Wells lines actually from
Sarpamitra.
Yeah, from Sarpamitra.
From Matt. Okay.
From Matt, and they were great snakes. He's a great guy. I don't know why, but we got out of them, and now we gotta work our way back in. Yeah, I haven't regretted a lot of like the pythons and boas and stuff that we've sold. But any colubrid, it's just nice to keep them into adulthood. And then, I'm sure it's hard for everybody. I know we've had talks with other breeders, and everybody's got buyer's remorse on that one. Really nice, breeder male you let go because you had too many of them or something. So
yeah, there's several sitting up there right now that, we've mentioned, oh, we could sell, and I'm just like, I'm just not in a hurry. So they're still up.
Yeah.
Like, we'll keep them for a while.
Yeah, I've had the experience too, and I'm just like, man, I'm like, oh well, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Gotta move on.
Yeah, for sure.
But at least it's nice knowing that your snakes are just screamers, and they go to someone else, but they could enjoy it at least. So
yeah. For sure. And everything we've ever sold, I feel like the people have been, really excited about the projects, and definitely makes you feel good about selling them. But
yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
we keep everything.
True.
Unfortunately, we got like 600 babies up there, and like we're planning on holding everything this year. Yeah. No. But,
cool. All right. So, what does the future for Mid-America Reptiles look like? I know we kind of talked about it a bit already, but in like the next, let's go short term, kind of like 3 to 5 years, where do you see your business or your reptile brand going?
Yeah, I think we're just gonna keep pushing the boundaries with colubrids and trying out new species. And I personally think on the short game, within the next couple of years, I want to get more into cow kings and
Nice.
some rat snakes,
the Getula type, common kings, and then some rats. We picked up a couple low-cal like eastern rats and Florida species, actually, from Chris Montross not too long ago. We're pretty excited about those.
Which ones? Blacks or Everglades?
They were a pair of Everglades, really nice looking Everglades, and then I wrote down here Pasco County yellows, so some yellows too. And I've really liked both of those. I really like the Pantherophis in general. It's a cool, I like rat snakes pretty well.
Yeah, me too.
For sure. Yeah, I know. And we got to get some Westerns, I mean, we got to get some Texas rats. We find a lot of them. We have a ton of black rats around the house. Yeah, we see a lot of them. That's like probably the most prevalent snake in our area is just a common like black rat snake. And I like them. Cool. They're good snakes. They eat a lot of rodents and birds. Stuff.
Yep. Yeah, I sometimes I think about it. I'm like, because I'll see Montross's stuff and I'm like, oh, should I get should I get some yellows, or like should I get some morph black rats? But then at the same time, I'm just like, I have too much going on with the Texas that like I don't have room for all this other stuff. I need to just like lock down on the Texas and like just pump them. So that's where I'm at on it.
Yeah, and I think that's a cool thing to do. I really think it's cool when somebody locks into one species or a couple of species. It really shows like dedication. That's who we predominantly buy. Like, if we're looking for cow kings, we'll go to somebody that predominantly does cow kings, or and most people would. There's a lot of people focusing on one species of snake, and why wouldn't you go to the guy that's been doing that for 10 years and got killer animals?
Definitely.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. Is there anything you had to add? Any species that we want to delve more into?
No, I mean, I think we're really interested in like the kings, like you said, the rats, and obviously I'm not getting out of corns anytime soon.
No,
so I mean, I think we've kind of locked in on that. The milks, we'll see how the milks go. We love milks and we enjoy them, but we'll see how the babies do for us. And
we've had pretty limited exposure on the milks. Actually, really pretty limited exposure on the baby milks as far as hatching them, and then really limited on the Mexicana stuff. So I mean, if it's really, really hard, I mean, I know it's, kind of crappy to say in some respect, but, if they're terrible to get feeding, it's just not something we have like a ton of time to do that, especially with the amount of babies that we have right now, at least.
Yeah. I know Lamprepeltis, once you get out of like Getula, can get tricky sometimes. The Hondurans, you're going to be solid on. Hondurans are easy as babies, like not a problem.
Yeah.
So when you get those breeding, I know you'll have a fine time with those. The other ones I can't speak to as much, but that was another species I used to breed at the pet store. But yeah, the Hondurans are super fun too. I think, within all these species, there's just, there's so much to enjoy. There's so much out there. There's so many morphs and all that good stuff. So yeah, just have fun with it. You guys are just having fun with it.
Yeah, we are for sure. We're having a ton of fun, and it's just a lot of I mean, we're having fun. We're having fun together. It's something we do as a team, and we just every time we see a clutch of eggs or a baby pip or get a baby to start feeding, it's just such a good feeling just to have them thrive and be able to do it, on the side. Yeah. So it's really cool.
Awesome. And then for my last and final question, so let's say you're at a show, right? Because I know you guys vend shows, and you have someone who's either never kept a colubrid or they're just getting into snakes. And you have to give the elevator pitch for why colubrids. So,
yeah,
we've done that
1,000 times.
Yeah, a few times.
Yeah. Go for it. Why colubrids then?
Go ahead. You want me to go? Yeah, go ahead. Okay. Well, my first and foremost thing that I tell everybody is that, just the feeding aspect of it is way different if they've kept, because most people have either kept a ball python before or know someone that has, and obviously, and they can be great and they're good starter snakes as well. But my pitch is always that, corn snakes specifically are my favorite. They're easy to handle, aside from baby colubrids in general can be, fast and things like that. I know he touched on, I don't always recommend them for kids without none without supervision and everything, because easy to lose a baby colubrid. But overall, they just have such great temperaments, and they'll eat out of the freezer for you. So, you're not making a ton of trips to the pet store to get lives. And that's my usual pitch, is just that they're really easy to take care of. They don't require a ton of humidity. They're hardy snakes. They're healthy most of the time, and they're fun to handle. I really enjoy handling colubrids way more than ball pythons. I just I like to interact with them, and so that's kind of my thing. But if somebody wants to chill on the couch with their ball python, I'm I tell them straight up, it's a lot easier to hold a ball python than it is a corn snake, when you just want them to be still. So, we try to be as upfront as possible and give everybody the rundown. And
I feel like we've talked a lot of people out of, I don't know about talked them out of them, but it just, when they come up to a table with a kid or something, it's going to be a better experience for you if you get a ball python, unless you guys are 50-50 on this. If you're really into it with your kids, then it's an awesome snake to get, because they're so much fun to watch grow. But, if your kid's mainly going to be the one watching it and you're just kind of going to help him feed it or whatever, it's, they're somewhat hard to take care of for a young child.
What's interesting about kids and snakes is that I'd argue an adult colubrid is a better choice, but then a baby ball python is the other good choice on the python side. If someone comes in my room at this point and wants to hold something, in fact, the first animal I give them is my adult rhino, because she's probably the chillest animal I have in my room. Cool. The ball pythons too, but some people get intimidated by their size, so I'll give them a juvenile ball python or a relatively small one. But even then, sometimes they're a little unpredictable, so I'm just I don't know. But but my adult ball pythons are pretty chill too. But that's a big ass snake, so sometimes when it's a breed female, some people are get a little freaked out by that. But an adult colubrid, I think, especially something like a corn snake that stays small, a rhino, it's a great would be a great pet for a younger kid, because actually probably easier to take care of an adult.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
definitely.
And that's something we've said before is, there aren't a ton of adults getting sold at like shows and
Mhm.
stuff. And
Yeah.
obviously it's going to be a little more of an investment, which it seems like it's hard to get a lot of people to invest any money in a snake unless they're trying to like breed it or they just really care. It's not to say some people don't, but yeah, I mean, an adult corn snake has got to be one of the best, like
Yeah.
easiest snakes in the world to keep. When I was a kid, there was a guy that my grandpa like shot trap with and stuff, and that was one of my first experiences with an adult corn. And he kept that thing in a wooden box at ambient temps in his like wood stove heated garage, and it was just thriving. It was fat. I mean, doing great. Nothing wrong with that snake at all. I mean, not saying you should do that by any means, but things are different when you're 75 and you got a corn snake in your garage.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, an adult corn is so great. Unless they're, and sometimes they can be a little bitey, but I think a lot of that comes with the breeding aspect of like not holding it a lot. So if you've got a well-handled adult corn, that's like a Labrador of the snake world. So nice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, cool, guys. It was just a little bit over an hour and a half, but any final words to the audience listening live or later?
Just thanks so much for having us on and listening to the podcast. We really love talking snakes. So if anybody wants to talk snakes, we like, getting involved with other breeders and stuff and doing trades here and there with people that are responsible and stuff. So, we probably know half the people watching this, but we really, really appreciate everybody watching. And
yeah. Anyone who's watching or listening later, go give them a follow on Instagram at Mid-America Reptiles. The link is in the description below, wherever you're listening to this. So make sure you go give them a follow. Tell them you enjoyed the episode and all that good stuff. But Travis and Cassidy, thank you guys so much. I'm going to throw you in the backstage, and I'll get back to you guys in a second.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, guys. Oh, I forgot to... Okay, there we go. All right, so yeah, guys, that was another great episode of Colubrid Corruption. I really enjoyed that one. Like I said, they're great people. I met them a couple times, obviously, before having them on the show here. So, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Make sure you hit the like on today's podcast. Make sure you hit subscribe on the channel. Trying to get to that 1,200 mark now because we just passed 1,100. So make sure you go do that. Check out the podcast on audio platforms. Give us a 5-star review. Let's see. Meteoric Serpent's Patreon. First link in the description below. Make sure you follow me on social media and all that good stuff. But yeah, guys, this was episode number 66 of the Colubrid Corruption podcast with Travis and Cassidy of Mid-America Reptiles. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we will see you on the next one. Peace out.